Yeah, okay, great. So Papema is a startup that I run. We're a management consulting outfit. I don't necessarily claim we're an entity. We're more, I think, organic. Each of us have our different kind of specialties. So we help think through business, right? So business problems, approaches to solving them, um, and that sort of thing. And so we've come up with this workshop for you guys, and I work with two other people. Their names are Pearl and Patrick. And yeah, we're here to help, support this ecosystem, and I think the African business ecosystem in general. Um, So yeah, so the workshops, right, is to give practical and holistic insights, right, for anyone that is operating at any scale, any level, right? Well, maybe not your international kind of MNCs, more so, startups, founders, SMEs, MSMEs, because yes, there is need for people to understand where they are and how to navigate this business place and the African continent and that sort of thing. Now, I do know all of you here are techies, right? All of you here have skills that are more technical leaning, right? Um, I hope that we can find a way to fit everything together, so that you can also think about the business side of things. And once again, business is very practical, right? It's all about making money, right? And making sure that you don't spend everything everywhere else, but creating value, right? Yeah. So yeah, once you get that first kind of round of investment, you know, don't just buy that Land Cruiser, right? There's a lot to do before then, right? Okay. So yeah, so this session is going to be sustainable business models. Now, when I talk about sustainability, I'm not talking about, is it green? Right? Is it ethical? What I mean by sustainable business is, can you continue doing business, right? And I know one of the biggest issues is, you'll get a round of funding, right? That's a source of capital, but are you able to have money being generated and value being captured, I think most importantly, right? Because you can create value somewhere, but if you can't capture it, then are you really doing business or is this just a hobby, right? Now, one of the things about business also is it's very dynamic, right? You've seen how disruptors like COVID have, completely changed the landscape of how we do things, right? I mean, pre-COVID, how many people were using cash? Now you can't use cash at your favorite restaurant. Well, depending on the restaurant, right? And there are all these shifts and changes, and your policymakers are either going to support you, uh, or support themselves, right? And so you need to be able to know when to pivot, know what to look for as things change. So that's what this session is mostly about, right? And then also the things that you can equip yourselves with to navigate the dynamicity of business, if you will. Right. So I'll show you where we're going. This is kind of what I'll need everyone to have, even if it's a mind map, even if it's just bullet points, right? I need everyone to know their core competencies, right? Basically, what is it that allows you to convert the resources that you have into revenue, right? As well as your resources. So what do you need? What do you need to spend on, right? Whether it's making an investment, whether it's, these continuous costs, like internet, right? In order to support your core competencies and deliver value to this macro environment, which is your users, which is, if you're working with governments, right? They make up stakeholders. And all of these things really are influenced by a myriad of factors, and it will be up to the individual team or company, right, to be able to identify what they need specifically, right? So yes, that's where we're going. Um, I will start us off with a nice little business case, right? We all know and love M-Pesa, right? We like it when we have money on our M-Pesas. We like it when people are sending in, not so much when we're sending out, right? Uh, there's a lot that M-Pesa offers, right? From everything from cash transactions to loans and that sort of thing, right? As well as an opportunity for builders to integrate onto to their platform, right? So one of the things that's made M-Pesa successful is digital proliferation, right? So people have been like, okay, I'm happy to pick up a phone, I'm happy to use the internet, right? I'm happy to, instead of taking this, 1 million shillings in cash on a matatu to my hometown, right? Now you can just send it on your phone, right? It's also on it's a it's a wallet on your SIM card, right? So there was this readiness to adopt it, right? And that also goes back to what I was saying about the operating environment, right? Are people willing to use and adopt this new technology? And I think that's a major problem for anyone that's dealing with Web3. I think that's also because people don't know how, right? Now when M-Pesa came about, you know, it was everything from, government using it to companies, retail, merchants were set up so that people can transact. They connected M-Pesa to your bank accounts, that sort of thing, right? So this point that I put here, M-Pesa is not just a product, it's also infrastructure, right? So uh, recently they expanded into Ethiopia. I don't know if you heard about that. I think it was something like, an 8 billion shilling deal, right? Or no, actually, I think it was $8 billion that they've agreed to reinvest into the Ethiopian market, uh, which is crazy. I think just recently they've broken even, right? They have competition, of course, Ethio Telecommunications, which is kind of like government run. So this is kind of the first competitor that's entering the Ethiopian market, right? Um, of course, there's competition here in fintech. You got NCBA Loop as another digital wallet. Right? I know most of you are familiar with the digital wallets that you can create using, blockchain technologies, right? Um, but yeah, so what enabled them was the context. And I don't know if you can see. So on the left here, this is from 2021. That was a survey, and the information on the right side is from 2024, right? So on the left, right, the usage of mobile payments, Kenya had the highest internet users using mobile payments, but only 23% was actually using the internet, right? Now, I know that number has increased, right? But you can see that in other contexts like Morocco, people are using the internet, but they're very cash reliant. Everything that they do, just, you use cash, right? So, the contexts are different, right? And within each context, you have to know, who am I looking to serve, right? How am I going to capture my value, right? Where am I creating value? You can't just bring M-Pesa to Morocco and expect to make money, right? Nigeria, maybe, right? South Africa, I think they use uh, cards, your Visas and MasterCard more. And on the right over here, you can see the unique mobile subscribers. We got 47% of the African population, right? Um, Mobile internet users, 28%. That's significant, right? And of course, the projected for 2030 is going to be 33%. That's a third of the African population, which is once again a crazy number, right? Because Africa is also only growing. Okay. What does this have to do with sustainable business models? Well, you need to know who you're serving, right? You need to know where you're providing value and bringing value. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard of the industry life cycle or business life cycle or product life cycle. I'm expecting anyone that went through any business class has seen this graph before. Yes, no? Who hasn't seen this graph? Oh my goodness. That's concerning, guys. So so the industry life cycle graph, right, is also the same as the business life cycle graph, which is also the same as the product life cycle graph, right? So you could, instead of industry, just put business over there. Um, you've usually got a R&D stage that happens before you launch, right? And as you get to this first phase, where investments are coming in, you'll see that the cash flow is negative, right? So you're doing a lot of investments. You're finding the things that you need to support operations, right? So it's going to be very costly, and you'll see that you'll have negative profits, right? Now, this can last anywhere from 30 days to, 10 years, depending on what you're developing and depending on, just other market factors, right? So if an industry doesn't have infrastructure, right, you won't be able to see growth, right? Now, I think first and foremost, I just want to give maybe like a minute for you guys to think where you are in relation to this. I do not expect anyone to be in maturity or decline. And I do want to pick maybe one person to say kind of where they feel like they're at.
Would be something to do.
Yeah, very important that everyone has a balance sheet, right? Have you guys heard of a balance sheet? Is there anyone here that has built a balance sheet and you can share that Excel document? Yes, no, maybe, yeah. Okay, you should share what you've done.
No, later, but.
Oh, you haven't, okay. Okay. So a balance sheet is basically what assets do you have, what liabilities do you have, and what equity has been uh, developed. Now, if it's coming from your pocket, that is equity, right? Whatever you're putting in is capital for the business, and it's still very important that you keep a track of it because yes. Okay. So yeah, it's very important that you can also see where money is moving because it also places you better when you're kind of showing people where you are on this life cycle. Right now, something interesting, a lot of investors will like to exit, during the shakeout period, maybe some during the maturity period when profits are hidden, right? Or if you decide to IPO or anything like that. But anyway, so make a note of where you are, right? Whether it's on a piece of paper or your notes out. Um, and I also just want us to now, I've kind of covered most of this. So business, once again, is very practical, right? If you have money coming in and you spend it, right? That needs to be shown somewhere. Otherwise, who will give you grants if they don't know how you're spending that money? Right? Maybe you have a product that needs to be developed, right? So usually that's where money goes to, right? To the development, maybe to the expansion of a team. Maybe you need a team to help you actualize on very specific things. Maybe you need training, right? Those are kind of the places where money goes, and you'd record them as expenses or as assets, depending on we can talk about the nitty-gritty more, I think, outside of this. But I do want to just be here for a bit, right? The main thing for Safaricom and some of these fintechs, right, was the enablers, right? It was kind of like right time, right place, infrastructure. People were having, building your cell towers. Um, there was investment, right? And of course there was trust, right? So socio-culturally, right, people were ready to adopt, right? And of course you can make people ready to adopt. If you look at the world of marketing, that's something that people use as a tool to be able to get people to know why you should adopt it, right? Why you should for visibility's sake, right? And demystifying some of the things that prevent customers, users, whoever it may be, from actually jumping at the product and just giving you money and being like, yeah. But of course, you need to be providing value. Um, Another key thing is, are you able to see and track the changes that are happening? And I think that's a really important thing. And I think it's one of the things that kills businesses. It's information. And we all have access to the internet, right? Are you able to sift through, one of the things is suppliers. Suppliers change because of, regulation, right? They might up their price for certain things. I know you guys have seen uh the cost of RAM and GPUs go skyrocket, right? If that is something that is essential to your product, have you already made the investments? Are you able to see, you know, when those changes are coming, right? So information is key. And I think even if you're building something, you hold a lot of information within yourself, right? So are you able to also give that information to your team or whoever is building, right? Whether it's to inspire confidence or whether it's so that everyone is on the same page, right? So our first activity, I'd want you all to just answer these three questions, and we've kind of already answered the first one halfway. Where am I on the business slash industry life cycle, or even product life cycle? Like, are you still researching? Are you, early growth, that sort of thing. Uh, the next thing that I want you guys to think about is, who are you seeking to serve primarily? And that will be continued in one of the next sessions. My colleague Patrick Mulumba will be covering that. So who is it that I'm serving? Who is giving me money for what I'm doing? Right. But you can also think about, if there's any social good, right? Who's benefiting from this social good that I'm providing? Right. And then finally, what are the kind of economic factors that either affect the company or affect the users, right? One thing that Safaricom does well is they make sure that their product is affordable. But you will see fluctuations in how much money they're making depending on how the economy is doing, right? You'll see that towards election period, people stop spending, right? And one of the things is, how do you navigate that? And that's something to just have in the back of your mind. When people stop spending, are you still able to go for maybe 6 months and still operate? do you need to find other markets that are not the Kenyan market? And I think since everyone here is building on something decentralized, your market is the world, right? Uh, so maybe just take 10 minutes. And if you'd like to discuss with the person next to you to help figure out any of those things, feel free. So I'll give 10 minutes for that one. And then we'll have someone share.
Shadows.
Yes, your answers. But I do want to give you think about time limit first.
The internal habits, it's a lot of learning of regulations.
So being tapped into policy changes. Okay. Tariffs and the fun stuff. So any questions up until that point? Questions, comments, clarifications that are needed? I'll take that as a no. So, okay. Basically, what you've done is you've identified all of those things, right? And that kind of becomes a framework for your business models. Okay. I don't know if you guys have already done your business model canvas. I will give everyone access to the slides, right? Because this is just, if you've done it once before and you've done it properly, you should be good, right? But if you've never seen this before, I think this is one of those strategic tools that kind of helps guide you through where I need to invest. But I think as you can see at the bottom there, you've got cost and revenue. None of the story that you're telling to your customers, your value proposition, and I'm speaking specifically to those that are looking to make profits in, the business world, right? Nothing matters if you do not have a cost structure or a revenue structure, right? If you don't know how you're making the money, right? And making that money be a recurring thing, then it's not really a business, right? And the same thing with costs. Everyone has to incur a cost at some point, whether it's cost of time, right, of monetary things, of whatever it may be. And having all of those things documented, understood, communicated, right? This is something that you need to communicate to your team in a very strategic way so that everyone is aligned and everyone is clear, this is where we're going, right? So that's been my session, right? Really just think about your revenue sources and the things that you need to make purchases of and investments and and engage with the market, right? And adapt to it and grow. I think ultimately that's what we're all here for. So thank you very much. I will be sure to share the slides, and if anyone wants to reach out and have a conversation, I have shared my email with Ochi, so he'll also pass that on. But yeah, thank you so much for engaging and listening. Um, any last comments from the crowd? Okay, thank you very much.
Sessions.
Okay. So yes, there are going to be 3 more sessions. The next session, I believe, is going to be my co-founder Patrick. He's going to be speaking about go-to-market. And then we have Pearl coming in to speak about building effective teams, right? So it kind of does continue from some of the things that we've discussed today, right? Obviously, if you don't have any competencies, can you really go to market, right? If you can't really communicate, can you really pitch to an investor, right? And if you don't have any resources, can you really, are you able to ask for those resources when it does come time to go to market and getting investment? And then Pearl session is, the interpersonal, right? You can't rely on, tools and technology to get everything done for you, right? Everything is for people by people, right? And I know those in the, decentralized finance space, the whole purpose of decentralizing is to make it accessible for everyone, right? So people matter. Are you able to lead? Are you able to manage? Are you able to communicate? Are you able to empathize? Right? But are you also able to handle conflict and make hard decisions when need be? Those are all very, very important things. And that also just speaks back to, do you make it past the 5-year point, let alone the first year point? I know it's usually around 1 year where you start to strangle your co-founders a bit, right? And then our final session, I don't have a list of the guest speakers yet, but I'm hoping to get some industry insight from your experts. Yes. Uh, and it'll just be a short online session. I think maybe if I could get you guys 4 speakers in the different spaces. So like policy for anyone that's concerned with governance and tech, someone in the finance space. And yeah, I've got a lawyer also that has expressed interest, but we will be sure to communicate that to you so that you can log in and yeah, have a listen from the people that have been there and doing this stuff for like 20 years. So yeah, hope to see you all there. Cool. Cool. All right.